I got this question about doing aggregates of aggregates in Tableau. Now, granted, in Tableau Prep, it's significantly easier because you can split your data sets separately and you have no issue. But in Tableau, where I like to think of it, all your data is kind of one flat layer, right? So if I look at this, right, and I look at the entire data set, this is one entire flat layer as I define it in my mind. There's no aggregated form of this data set, right? So what do I mean by that? If I do by region, oh, hang on, shouldn't have double clicked, but let's say I'm going to do by maybe country and sales. If I looked at this in terms of a table of data, right, this is an aggregated form of the larger data set, right? This is the table, but this isn't a permanent table I can refer to. It's something I've created off the master set. So how do I do calculations off this aggregated form of data, right? So the question is that I got specifically is I have some sort of calculation like this. How do I now find the average of these values? Now, average, talking about it from a mathematical point of view, can be quite problematic. Okay, and what do I mean by that? If I take this value, right, and I think I can just copy that and take the average. Do it in Excel because it's really easy to see. All right, so I got all these values, and I don't know if I can sum this. Yeah, because of this pound symbol. Let's just clean that up. Let's go this, get rid of that. All right, so these are now numbers. All right, so the total, actually we'll write it down, is 2.9 million-ish. Okay, so if I move this over here, and now we do the same thing, we take sum of sales, right? We'll get rid of country, and I convert this from sum of sales to average. You'd think we'd get the same thing, but we don't, right? See, this is 294, this is 293. And the reason is, again, because of that layer. So when you're doing this 294 calculation, you're not performing the calculation on this. You're performing it on, if I go to full data, right, on every individual one, right? Which is not the same as aggregate. So how do you do that in Tableau? So let me show you. It's actually a little bit more advanced. You have to use level of detail calculations to make it work. I'll be honest, it does take practice. I've been doing Tableau for several years now. I probably still didn't get the real hang of it until maybe 6 months in, maybe a year in, though there are some superstars I've met who just understand it straight away. Okay, so let's begin with a simple example. So let's look for subcategory and let's bring in sales. All right, and let's put the labels in so we can see. So the question is, what if I don't want to do it the whole thing? I just want to do it for the top 5. So the first thing I always do when I'm filtering by top 5 is I sort them. And this is just to make sure that what I'm doing is correct, because a lot of the times we're on autopilot, we think we're picking the right buttons and doing the right things, and accidentally it excludes things, right? So that's what I want to keep. So copiers, bookcases, phone, storage, appliances. So we're going to grab subcategory, holding control on the keyboard, and we're going to go top, and we're going to go top 5 by sum of sales. Okay, so these are my top 5. Now what I want to be able to do here is actually duplicate these values for every row of data. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So this is 365,000. I'm going to bring in another field just to split this data up. So let's say I bring segment in. That value we had is actually a combination of these 3 values. Okay, it's a summation of them. That means if I bring segment in, it will split. Okay, not unexpected, but I don't want it to split. So how do I do that? I use a fixed calculation, right? A level of detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to go create calculated field. Let's get rid of all this, right? And we're going to go sales fixed, okay? And I like to do the double braces straight away, right? And we're going to go and use the fixed function, right? We're going to include subcategory. But before we do that, I'm going to leave it blank, right? Colon, and we're going to do sum of sales. Now this is actually really good practice. This is how I learned to do it. If you write the entire fixed level of detail calculation, you can get confused. So start with the full one and then kind of add to it. All right, so I'm going to go OK. I'm going to bring that in. All right. Now this number 2.938, that's the sum of every single row of data, but it's not splitting based on subcategories, so we have to add that in. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go subcategory, and if I go apply, they should now be the same. There you go, so exactly the same. Now, that thing we were testing before on how it splits, let me show you how that works now. If I grab segment and drop it in here, watch what happens. All right, look at these. These are all the same, whereas these ones split. Because what happens is in the fixed calculation, it ignores segment because it's not part of the level of detail calculation. Okay, so now that we have these as individual values, now we can apply an average calculation, right? So let's give that a go. I'm gonna take, where is it? Sales fixed, right? I'm gonna bring it up here and it's gonna be duplicated, okay? And what we're going to do before we do that, let's get rid of segment and let's figure out what the actual average is, right? So I'm going to just do this with the calculator. So we're going to add these 5 up. 129 plus 363, 526 plus 361, 312, 339, 684 plus 275, 439. Now what is that? 341,082 is my guess. Oh, 341,018. I'm just kidding. I did this calculation before, but that was impressive, right? All right, so this last one, if we convert this to average, it should equal this number. Okay, so let's give it a go. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go average, right? And it's not going to change because it's still being split. Okay, so if we get rid of subcategory, it will no longer split, and oh, look at that, 341,018. So you need to do a combination of fixed functions to really do aggregates of aggregates. Again, don't be hard on yourself if you can't figure it out. It takes a lot of practice to really be able to do this very confidently and understand what the data is doing. And the other thing is, even though you understand the formulas, the data is constantly changing. You know, you're doing data from one system and then the next day you go to a different project and you're constantly learning. Okay, so now I can get rid of these two, drop this into label, and that's it, right? And then I can use that however I like. Just note that as soon as you start modifying these or start considering other fields, you do need to modify this fixed function, or you can start switching to include, exclude, up to you. All right, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed and see you next time.